wage their battle to destroy the evil forces of the Decepticons, the Transformers. The Transformers.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another exciting edition of Transformers Reviews. Well, today, guys, I'm going to be bringing you the Studio Series Ratchet. Now, I'm going to say right off the bat that I've done some slight modifications to this Ratchet. So some of the things you're going to see they're just very slight cosmetic changes. But overall, what you will see in this video is what you're going to get. Now, one of the things I do want to mention is this, I didn't pay attention whenever I bought it. But instead of the previous Voyager releases that this has been, due to this being part of the Studio Series, they've made him a deluxe. Now, as far as vehicle mode goes, he doesn't scale with any of the other Transformers. They've made them where they all scale more in robot mode. And a little bit of proof for that is, he's supposed to be an H2 Hummer. Well, we look at the sports car for Stinger, and he is so much bigger than Ratchet. You can see there's a size discrepancy here. Stinger dwarfs Ratchet when it should be really the other way around. Now, one of the things that Ratchet comes with is his little saw blade weapon from the first movie that he used to chop off Brawl's arm. Now, these are ports that actually turn into the robot mode arms, and you can attach it there. It just looks a little kind of silly, like you've turned him into some sort of gladiatorial thing like the ancient chariots used to have that would take down gladiators. Now, the place they suggest storing this is actually up here on the top where that wheel is. And if you plug it in there, to me that just kind of looks like some sort of ghetto TV dish that he's got sticking out there. So generally I will leave it off. Now, one of the cool things is if you take one of the missiles from Nitro, you can add on the side there, and now it kind of looks like the G.I. Joe vehicle from years ago. But that's just a fun little side note. Other than that, it is a really small vehicle, like I was saying. But before we get to size comparisons, let me go ahead and mention some of the modifications I've done. Up here, the rack, you can see that this is slightly off. That's my fault, because when this comes in the store, this entire rack up here is one piece. But due to the way that his robot mode transforms, it left the entire rack just hanging off his rear end. So what the deal was, as you can see, I've actually successfully modified it over here. I slightly got it offline, because what I did was you have to cut the rack up into 3 different pieces, and then basically when you put it back in the slots, you just glue them back into their tab slots. And whenever I went to do this, up here it didn't have a place to go, and I got it slightly out of line. So that's my fault. I've seen other people successfully modify Ratchet. As you can see, like I said, I did it right over here, but this is slightly off. So that's just something I'll have to live with. Now, one of the other things is you can see this panel right here. What it does is for the robot mode leg, it folds back on top of this one that says department. Well, in vehicle mode, there was just a little bit too much plastic there, and it wouldn't sit flush to help. It would just, the panel would just kind of be popped out a little bit. So what I had to do is, along this edge, I had to trim that just a little bit, so now it's able to go into its place and rest flush against this arm piece. Now, again, but overall, I just love the aesthetic, the lime green with the pulse to, Ratchet's trademark, I guess. So one of the funny things is I pulled a couple of Age of Extinction figures, and even, these were before the Studio Series came out. But what's ironic about it is, like, if you take the Age of Extinction Hound here, you can actually see that, oddly enough, due to the type of vehicle this is, if you look at the size of the cab and the doors compared to these, because Hummer doors are huge anyway, and on military vehicles like these, the doors are rather small. And when you compare them, pretty much he would be in scale with Hound right here, which I'm like, that's totally awesome. I'm down with that. Now, also keeping that in mind, if we pull over another Age of Extinction figure, kind of the same deal about the differences. On these trucks, the doors are also kind of small as compared to what an H2 Hummer would be. So even if you had him scaled with Optimus here, I think it actually matches pretty good, because again, an H2 Hummer is a big vehicle, and I do feel, having actually worked around trucks like this in the real world, I kind of get the feeling that this is actually a pretty good scale also. If it's not exact, it's pretty close. I gotta say that. So I'm just happy that due to the fact that I do have guys that he can scale with appropriately. But really, guys, other than that, as far as vehicle mode goes, I really can't complain. I really do like Ratchet. The only thing that I will mention before going on to robot mode is that part of his what becomes his shoulders, they tab behind where this plastic piece is. So literally this black plastic has to flex. So, well, I'll just go ahead and show you a little bit right here. See, it has to untab from right there. So whenever you're going back to attach it, that black, it is a softer plastic, but my fear is that one day after doing it so many times, it may flex it and get it out of shape. But again, I could be wrong. So anyway, other than that, guys, that's pretty much it for for vehicle mode. So let's go ahead and take a look at Ratchet in robot mode. And so here we are, ladies and gentlemen, with Ratchet in his robot mode. The studio series, living true to their word, is they're making these guys as accurate as they can. And I gotta say, they nail it. I love the grill detail. Now, one of the small things is you'll notice on these big chompers that he has in robot mode over here on the sides of his regular mouth, those were not painted. They were just part of the molded green. So what I did was I took a silver Sharpie and kind of filled them in to where they would be more accurately colored to tie in with his mouth. And so that's just the small modification I made for that. And while we're speaking of that, now you can see that the rack does go ahead and separate, and as you can see back here, it does fold up. Now see, the rest of the rack to where it originally was before it was cut, it would hang down to like right here. So you had like this big line that was coming like down to here, you know, and so I mean, it was like almost down to like the lower part of his calf, you know, and so that's why everybody kind of has a beef with it. As far as everything else goes, aesthetically, he's a great looking robot. I mean, this is the closest representation we have to his on-screen appearance as far as being in physical form. But if we want to go ahead and take a look at his accessories, for Ratchet, on his artwork, it actually shows him having this and using it as a shield, which, I mean, that's kind of cool. I can kind of see him doing that. But again, in the first movie, whenever he was like flipping over Brawl, he just went and just chopped his arm right off with it. So it's offensive and defensive, I guess, which is really kind of cool. You know, I was joking about using Nitro's missiles. Well, again, you can actually apply them here in robot mode. And then, you know, even though he's a doctor, if you wanted him to kind of have more of a, you know, just a firing pose, you could kind of have him do that with the missiles. And I mean, it doesn't look bad. I really do like how dynamic. It's not just the missiles. I mean, just look at his posability. Ratchet can get in some really sweet looking action poses, and I love that. Let's see how he scales again. Since this, let's compare him with a fellow. We saw him earlier, but this is his fellow Studio Series version, and you can see even though they are deluxes, they have made it where he is bigger than him in robot mode, as it should be. Since he, in the movies, was bigger than like Bumblebee and Stinger are about the same size. And so if we go ahead and we pull in Hound here. Now this is where the stuff kind of starts to get a little bit out of scale. While it's not too much of a stretch to believe that Hound could be bigger, I always kind of thought that maybe Hound was about the same size as Ironhide, even though you never saw the two of them together, which Ratchet and Ironhide were about the same size too. So, I mean, this is where the scale does start to fall out. So as you can kind of see, this doesn't look too bad. I mean, would I display these three together on the shelf? Yeah, I wouldn't mind doing it. I mean, I probably am. So overall, I mean, you can kind of, like I said, this is where you pick up the biggest size discrepancy, because I think these two would be the same height. But again, Optimus, when you throw him in there, it kind of distracts your eye a little bit overall, because he's always bigger than everybody and you don't really notice it, because your eyesight more compares Ratchet to Optimus more than Ratchet to Hound. But other than that, before I ramble on too much, guys, this again has been the Studio Series version of Deluxe Class Ratchet. And until next time, guys, we'll see you in another review.